Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and welcome to my monthly journal pages. Today we'll be flipping through my October pages and chatting about the journal spreads, techniques, and ephemera I created to connect with my personal tarot practice last month. So originally, I think I had said in my last month's journal flip through that I was going to use 3 different inserts in my journal this month, and I was just going to go ahead and put October, November, and December in there. That didn't actually end up working out for me, mostly because I ended up incorporating this larger journal into the back of my traveler's notebook. And what I've been using this one for is actually to record kind of ongoing or long-term readings or reflections of readings that I've had done from other people. And so I'm not going to actually show those because really there's nothing pretty in it. There's nothing design-wise. It is all just writing. And so I've added this to my journal. At least for this month, we will see if I end up continuing to use it going forward. I am planning to do a little bit of changes to how I tarot journal in 2021, but I want to just kind of finish up this year the way that I've been going. And so I just threw this in the back of my journal. It's actually put in with a band, of course, and I just slipped the band in halfway between the pages and just put it in here, and you can see that it actually fits in here really nicely. I've really been enjoying having that extra space to really dive deep into some readings, like I said, readings I've done for myself or readings that other people have done for me, and that just allows me space to really dive into those and to journal and to kind of continue on with those sort of ongoing readings, right? They're not really monthly, they're not really weekly, they're kind of more, they have to do with particular things that I'm working on or situations that I am in, and so that allows me that space to keep those in here as they are things that I'm continually working on and still have the space to do just my sort of weekly readings that I do that I don't necessarily need to go back and look through, you know, in the next few months. And so that's been working really well for me, and I'm enjoying that process. We'll definitely be using that going into November. That does, however, mean, as you can see here, probably it creates quite a big bulk when I try to work in this middle insert. And so what I've been doing is just taking this insert out and working in it. And that's one of the things that I really like about having a traveler's notebook is I can just real easily, you know, slip this insert out and I can lay it flat and I can work on it, and then I can put it back in here when I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. So you can see here, it just sits on this band. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside so that we can really focus in on my insert here, or really what was my October journal. So I created this little cover for it. I didn't do anything like super fancy. I put some fabric along the side, which is kind of cool because it covers up, you know, where I've hand stitched the insert together. I really like making my own inserts because then I can make them with the papers that I like. I can incorporate other types of paper in there, and I can also make it as big or as small as I need. So for this particular one, I just did a little bit of paper collaging here, stamped out the date, of course. This is from a book page. And then this was a little die cut, I think that came from Michael's. I think it was a set that I actually got last year. And on this particular insert, I did take the time to round the corners because the corners are rounded in my traveler's notebook, and I just think it looks really nice. So the cover is just created with cardstock, and so you can see that there. And it allows me to make them all custom and to do what I need to with them. I've included some book pages in this one, which I actually quite enjoy because it gives me extra space to work on if I want to, or just adds a decorative element to my journal. So the first kind of pull that I did in October was I pulled a card to kind of represent the energy for October, and I used the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle. And it was funny because the card that I pulled was the third harvest, and so that kind of is really where we're at in this season. And I just noted the keywords, which were gathering and abundance, kind of just stamped October at the top. I did some doodling back here. I just made some black swishes to kind of mimic this, and of course some paper collaging. So moving into the first real week of October, I was working with the literary witches in place of my self-care Sunday readings, which I talked about that in my reflections. So here's kind of what it ended up looking like in my first pull. I did a lot of paper collaging on this one just because I was having fun playing with it. And then here's the 3 cards that I pulled. And because these cards have a lot of kind of white space around them, I just cut out the actual images that I need. That way it takes up less space in my journal. I have my date and of course my own reflection. So here's my first real reading for the week. This is a 3-card reading that I did on Monday, October 5th. And you can see here that I used the Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's Tarot and the Oracle of Oddities. I did some paper collaging. This is actually a book page, so I think it really looks cool when I can collage over the top of a book page. It's a lot of fun. And I had just this plain dot grid paper over here that I just wrote my reflections and did just really minor decorative elements to it because my focus was more over here. Added a little sticker and there you go. I think you'll probably see that in the beginning of the month, I did much more decoration than I did toward the end of the month because I started getting really busy. So on Wednesday, I just pulled again another card from the Seasons of the Witch Oracle and wrote a little bit from the guidebook. That was just kind of my pull for the day. And then on Friday, I did another 3-card reading with those same 2 decks. And of course, I have my reflections here and just did some paper crafting there. I get a lot of questions about how do I get the cards into my journal. Basically, what I do most of the time now is I do my reading, I do all my reflections and all of that. And then what I do is I take the actual cards and I throw them on my color copier and I just reduce the size down and literally cut them out and then repaste them into my journal. Now that means that they aren't always in exactly the same layout that they were on my table when I did the reading, but I know that when I do a 3-card reading, I do it the same way every time. So I can put them into my journal a little bit more artistically because I know that my process for 3-card reading is the same no matter what deck I use. But that's how I seem to get the best color. Occasionally, if I have a larger spread, I will take a picture of it with my phone, take it into Photoshop, size it down, and then print it back out with my color printer. But my colors don't really seem to come out near as dark or as well as when I just throw them in the color scanner and copy them. Like actually just make an actual copy of the deck or of the card. That seems to work a lot better for me. So that's kind of my process. A lot of times when we see these ones that are on the single pages like this, these are full size images. And when I do the smaller ones, I just shrink them down to, 60, 70, 50%, however much space I think I need. I never really do the same thing every time. It's just kind of whatever comes out during that time. So moving into the next week, we had, again, another reading with the Literary Witches where I have the Literary Witch that I pulled and then my 3 Oracle messages from that. Again, this is from the actual Literary Witches book and then my own reflections for that day. Oops. So moving along here, we have my first reading that I did for the 2nd week in October and I was using the Ghosts and Spirits Tarot. This page, you won't be able to tell it, but underneath all of this paper collaging, you can kind of see it there. I had written some stuff and I didn't like the way that it looked. I basically covered it up with paper collaging and just added some bits and pieces to it. And then again here, didn't like what I had done. I didn't like what I had done on the page at all. So I left the date and I kind of started over by paper collaging over the top of all of it. And then I have this box here that I cut out to cover up what I had written before that I didn't like the way it looked. Now I didn't change any of the actual message. I just changed the way that I presented it because it just didn't look pretty before. So I just wrote my little message down on a piece of paper, cut it out, pasted it on there, and drew my little box around the side. So this is the second pass of this particular page because the first time I wrote it, I was in a hurry and it just, I don't know, it didn't look very nice and I just really didn't like it and it kind of made me sad when I looked at it. So when I had time, I went back and I fixed it and made it look a little bit nicer because I like for these to, you know, be functional, of course, but I like for them to be things that I enjoy looking back on. And when it's a hot mess like that, I don't enjoy that. So I covered it up and I fixed it. So here you can see these were the 3 cards I pulled in relation to this reading here. And I just put them on this book page. Again, they were just color copied, shrunk down, and pasted on there. And so Wednesday we have another reading that I did. Another 3-card reading with the ghosts and spirits. This one I actually had a prompt. This is, what do I need to know to stay my course? That was just a question that I kind of had in my head at the time. So I did my reading on that. I have some book page here that I just pasted on and some stamping. And again, here we have another 3-card reading that I did on Friday. And again, I had another prompt in mind. So it was, what insights have I gained within the last week? And that's how I did my reading for that one. Again, just color copy, cut out, pasted. This one I did some doodles around because this is actually newsprint paper. And so it's very plain. So I just added some doodles to it. So moving along, I had another card pull that I did. And this one I said morning message. So it was obviously a card that I pulled in the morning. And I just did a little bit of paper around it. This is coffee dyed tracing paper and some stamping. And again, that's the message that I needed. So that's what I put in there. I didn't really need anything more than just the card itself. So I didn't elaborate on that. This again is a book page. And I just thought it looked so pretty the way that it was. I didn't want to cover it up. So I left that. And this is, of course, the other side of the book page. And this is my Sunday reading for the next week. I was having an issue. It's kind of funny. I was having an issue with my printer, my color copier printer. It's like an all-in-one thing. And it was like printing everything green. And I don't know why. I changed like all the ink and I did a cleaning and like totally tried to fix it. I reprinted these cards. This was the literary witch that I pulled, and we had the moon, the lion, and the pond, which were the 3 little oracle cards that I pulled to go with it. And no matter what I did, they printed green. So I figured I was just going to go with it. There must have been a reason for that. And I just left them green, put them in here, and played off that green color for all of my different messages. So what we have here is the image, you know, the card, and then the keywords that were in the little book for each one, and then my reflection. And I just did a bunch of stamping behind it before I actually added all this stuff on. And here we just have some paper collaging and some stickers over the top of book page. And I left this because I thought it was pretty. I don't know what the deal was, because the next day when I went to print something, it was totally fine. So this whole spread was just meant to be green, I guess, because the next day it was totally fine. So moving along, we have my mid-month reflection that I did in the middle of October. These are spreads that I often like to do in the middle of the month to kind of just check in with where I'm at. It's a 6-card reading for me. I do body, heart, mind, and soul, usually with tarot, what I'm leaving behind and what I'm moving towards through oracle. And then I just note my reflections. And again, this one is just a little bit of paper collaging. I did distress the pages themselves with some Tim Holtz distress ink just to kind of give them that vintagey look. And it was a really great one. So moving along into the next week, I was working with the Bohemian Gothic. And you'll see that a lot of my paper collaging kind of starts to wane off, and I start just using more kind of simple color tones to match the cards, and that's really what I focused on. I just really didn't have the time to do a ton of paper collaging as the month rolled on. So I just did a little bit up here with some washi, the date, and my cards, and then my reflections. And then here, of course, is my cards as well, with just a little bit of paper collaging over a book page. So here's another reading that I did, and this one was the Spiritual Counsel reading, and it actually came from the Season of the Witch Oracle book. And so there are a couple really great spreads in there, so I was kind of trying those throughout the month. Some of them are in my my larger notebook that I showed you earlier, and some of them are in here. So this was a 3-card reading of what do my ancestors and guides want me to know, why are they telling me this, and how can I better receive their guidance. So I just did those 3 cards. I think they mean for you to do it with the Oracle, but I mixed Oracle and Tarot. Sometimes I did these readings just with Tarot, and I didn't even include the Oracle. Just depended on kind of how I felt at the time. So this was a little bit about the Elements card that I pulled, and then I have my little reflections there. So moving along, this was another spread that I did from the guidebook. And I think I changed the last prompt because I think the last prompt, number 5, was something different, and I changed it to be message from shadow, but I think it was a similar kind of concept. So we had, what is the state of my shadow right now? What is my current relationship to my shadow? How can I build a better relationship to my shadow? And what can I learn from my shadow? And like I said, I changed that 5th one to be message from my shadow, because when I did this, I actually did it as a 4-card reading with the Bohemian Gothic, and then just pulled the Oracle card for the final wrap-up message. And one of the things that the reason I did this particular one was because the day after my video came out, I think it was the day after my What Shadow Work Means to Me video came out, I was flipping through the book to look for a reading to do, just to try one of the spreads, and I noticed this one was a shadow spread or shadow work spread, and I thought, well, I never really do spreads that are actually supposed to be for shadow work, so I thought I'd give that a try. And it was pretty cool. So I just thought it was funny that that kind of popped out at me right after I had done that video, and so it kind of felt like it was meant to be, so I did that one there. And you can see here that, again, I'm getting less and less into the paper collaging and more just into the doodling. I tend to do that throughout this time of the year and into the new year. It's like everything else, it's like seasonal for me, I guess. So here was my pull from the litter, which is, we have my witch over here, and then my 3 oracle messages. Again, this is from the literary witches full book, and then my message. And then I just did some little doodles, and this is on a book page. And this was another just 1-card pull that I did. I just did some stamping with this one because I really wanted to just focus on the card itself. And then moving into the last week of the month, I was using the Zombie Tarot, which is just one of my favorites, on the Halloween Oracle. And again, you'll see that I don't think I did any real paper collaging. I was playing with my stamps. And so I did a lot of stamping this last week, and just, you know, wrote my reflections down. So here's a sort of midweek check-in that I did on Wednesday. You can see here's my 4 cards that I pulled, and my prompt was, what is up with this week? And then I did my reflections here. So again, just some stamping. I did a little kind of border to kind of mimic the border that's on the cards, and nothing too terribly crazy, just some stamping over some book page on this side. So then on Friday, October 30th, or rounding to the end of the month, I did another 3-card reading. Again, these aren't laid out in the way that I had them because the owl was in the middle and I had the 2 tarot on either side. But I really like this image from the book because I felt like it really tied into the message. And I love that when the book pages that I have bound into these inserts like a month prior actually end up working out with the reading. I always think that's kind of cool, because this was really all about just getting focused, and I thought that was really wonderful for that. And again, you see just some random stamping and colored ink. That's really all I did. And then finally we have my October reflections. So I have my 3 prompts that I use every month that I try to just kind of reflect on my journaling process and my tarot practice that month. And they are, how did I honor my practice? What were my challenges? And what brought me joy? And then I pulled a card on Samhain, just to pull a card to kind of wrap up this journal. And it was funny because I pulled the All Hallows Eve card, so I thought that was just appropriate. And then you can see here I don't have anything on this last page, but that's okay. So you can see I did pretty well in, you know, figuring out how many pages that I actually needed. I'm getting fairly good at that, which means that by the time I get really good at figuring out how many pages I need each month, that means I'll end up changing my process, because that seems to be the way it always is. So here's the book page and the end of the insert. So that's a look at my October journal pages. I'm going to go ahead and leave it out because, of course, now we need to put November's in there. Thank you for joining me for this flip through my tarot journal pages. If you'd like to find out more about any of the decks that I used this last month, check out my monthly reflections video, which you will find linked in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this flip through and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.